Welcome everyone, KD here, and this is part 2 of my tutorial about blueprints and communication between blueprints. Like I said in part 1, this is a beginner for beginners, for people who want to start with Unreal Engine. And in part 1 I made the introduction. I told you about different parts of the event graph and the blueprints, how you can use them. So if you missed the part 1, please watch this one, the part 1 first. I also talked about the level blueprint in part 1, and now I want to go further to active blueprints. So active blueprints, how can you create an active blueprint and for what can we use the active blueprints? So generally I will show you two let's say 3 different tasks you can do with an active blueprint. This will be in 3 different parts to keep this tutorials a little bit shorter. The first tutorial was already quite long. I didn't intend it to make it so long, so I want to keep them a little bit shorter. So task number 1 is for creating events or tasks that you want to bring over to different maps. So you don't want to create them in the level blueprint itself. You may want to create this into a separate actor, so you can bring this actor then into different maps and then just recall the task, the event into the level blueprint. And I will show you how you can do this, and this will also be the first part, how you can communicate between different blueprints. So this is very important here, what I will show you here. As an example, that is kind of the second thing you can do is saving and loading your game. You want to have a really central, only one active blueprint. You want to do saving and loading. You don't want to do this in different blueprints, because then you will mess up your save and load file. You want to have everything central in one blueprint. So you will do these tasks in an active blueprint, and then you will recall this task as example from the level blueprint. You want to load the game as example as soon as you start the map and things like that. And then before you leave the map, you want to save again, and you recall this function from a separate active blueprint. However, about saving and loading, I will go a little bit closer, more in detail when I talk about the save blueprint class. But this is a separate class. And then the third thing you can do with active blueprints is, I will show you in the next part, is to have interactive assets, as example NPCs you can talk to, or items you can pick up, treasure chests you can open, doors you can interact with and open up, buttons you can press or unpress, and things like that. Just really everything that is interactive you can do create with active blueprints. And I think active blueprints are one of the most useful tools you have, because they are very universal. You can do a lot with them. How do you get your active blueprint? You press here in the content browser on add new, then on blueprint classes, and then you see the first one is actor. Select this, you get a new blueprint, and you can label this. Again, I always recommend you to label it so you will find it later, and so on. So I will open up this active blueprint, So I didn't label it very intelligent. Of course, it's just a new blueprint, but like I said, for you want to know what tasks you want to do in this blueprints. And when we open up here, get in here, first thing we see is now we have more options in here. We have now not only the, of course, we have the event graph we already saw in part 1. We have a construction script, and we also have a viewport. So here in the viewport you can, as example, add a skeletal mesh, add a static mesh, add a camera, add whatever you want to it. However, this will be part 3. In this part we won't use the viewport, so we'll go a little bit more into this in part 3. Now I just want to show you the event graph. What we have here are, it gives us different events already that we can choose: event begin play, event active begin, overlap, event tick. I generally never use them, that's why I will delete them. If I use an actor like this, then I most of the time, or almost all of the time, I just create custom events. So we'll create a custom event. Maybe I will call this tutorial, and I will also create a variable, doesn't matter what, I just want to show you. For example, let's call this 1111, so we will find it very easy. Maybe what I a little bit forgot to tell you about is the top here. So you always want, after you created something, compile it. If it's green, then everything is fine. If it's red, then it will tell you that there is a problem, there is an error if it's red, and you will find the error down here in the compiler result, and then you can easily find where is the error and hopefully solve it. There is also a warning. Warnings are yellow, and you want to solve warnings too. You want to have it green. Then you can save here, find in blueprint. Yeah, you can search something in your blueprint. These are stuff I don't use too much. Then here you can start simulating your blueprint or playing the map in a separate window or anything like that. That's kind of all here. So that's what I created here. I created the event, and so now, like I said, you can do here different things. Examples I already said in part 1. You can here calculate the high score, what you can, and things like that. So you want to do stuff here that takes over into different maps and is always the same task, and so on. Or, as I explained before, saving and loading and things like that. You can do all this stuff in here. You make a task, you make an event, you make your task, all the tasks you want to put in here. Now the problem is, if you just do it like this event will never be called. Like, how can you call this event? If this is now a high score, and your player killed an enemy, and you want to add the new, and this give him points for the high score, and you want to calculate the new high score, you may want to do this in here. But how can you call this? And for this we go back to the level blueprint. I say it again, I showed it in part 1, level blueprints. If you're in the map you want to work in, press on blueprints and open level blueprints. Now let's delete this. Let's say this is event begin play, or when we should we keep with the this is a high score, so we may want to use event tick for this. So how can I do this? To get the reference for another blueprint, you have to do two things. I almost forgot the first thing. One thing is you have to reference the blueprint, the active blueprints in the map itself, and that's a very important thing. That means you grab this blueprint and you just push it at any point in your map. If you have nothing in the viewport, don't worry, you don't see anything, it won't have an effect. You won't see this sphere or anything like that in the map itself. If you play it, it will be completely visible. Of course, if you put something in the viewport, you will see it, and you may want to position it in the right place for your map. However, now you see our new blueprint is referenced in here, and that's something you have to do. And if you're going into a new map and you want to call the event from this blueprint there too, you have to also just put it in into your map. So it is referenced in here. You see the new blueprint. That's the first thing you have to do. If you don't do that, you can call the event, but it won't find. Then when you play the game or test the game, simulate the game, then you will get an error that it couldn't find this event because it's not referenced in the map itself. We go back to the level blueprint. Now the second thing we have to do to recall an event from a reference, you get the function get all actors of a class. That's something you will use often because that's how you can call different events and play this event from different blueprints and play these events. So when we go in here, actor class, we can select. You see here we have a lot of options, so we press in our new blueprint, and now we have a reference to our new blueprint. And from here we can now say get a copy, and from here now we can recall our events. So you remember I called our event tutorial, so I can press in here tutorial and it will find it, the event tutorial. And if I connect it in here now, I can call this the task I put in here. Choose the event tick. Yeah, so like I said, this is now the high score, so now it calculates all the time the high score. So if we kill an enemy and we add a number to it, we immediately recall the new high score we just calculated in the blueprint in here. So I created here also a variable, and I just did this to show you that you not only can call functions, events, and so on, you can also call variables. And sometimes you need a variable from another blueprint and use it in here. And I call this 111, and you see you can get 111 or you can set 111. And you can, as example, set this on active now, and then this will change as soon as we call this event here. And because it's event ticket, it does call it immediately. And that's how you communicate between blueprints. So I hope this is a little bit clear. Maybe I don't gave you the best examples here on how, for what you can use active blueprints. Other examples, if you go more into RPG, maybe you have a skill tree or anything like that, then maybe you want to do the skill tree in a separate active blueprint. You don't want to do this in a level blueprint. Problem is, if you do this stuff in a level blueprint, if you go into the next map, you have to redo it again. And if you do it like this, you can recall the event, and you just have to call the event into your level blueprint at the point you want to have it, instead of creating it over and over again for every map, and so on. I really like to use a lot of different active blueprints for different events. Like I said already in part 1, I really like to I don't like to string a lot of things together. I like to keep things separate. It's easier for me personally to find stuff if I do it like this. So I like to use a lot of active blueprints. Other example is if you have kind of level system, you want to do this in a separate active blueprint. You don't want to do this in a level blueprint or anything like that. Or what I said before already, if you want to save or load your game, you can also do this in a, or I really recommend it to do this in one particular active blueprint and always use this active blueprint. But we will come to this a little bit later. So part 3 will be to create an interactive asset. Thank you for watching, and I hope I see you in part 3.